Australian Eastern Standard Time. So good afternoon from Melbourne, Australia. Good morning to you if you're on a different time zone, and welcome to today's webinar. Conserve and Lynxspring are proud to be joining together to bring today's presentation to you. My name is Richard McElhinney, and I am the Chief Software Architect at Conserve. Joining me on today's presentation is my colleague, Chirayu Shah, and our good friend and industry legend, Chief Marketing and Communication Officer at Lynxspring, Marc Petock. Today's webinar will proceed in the following way. After I've concluded this brief introduction, Marc Petock will be presenting an introduction to the Edge and what is our shared vision for a fully Niagara Edge-enabled future. Following Marc, Chirayu Shah will give you a deep dive into the products that Conserve is promoting and supporting from Lynxspring, both in our local Australian and APAC markets and also beyond. At the conclusion of Chirayu's presentation, we will be more than happy to answer any questions that may arise during the course of this presentation. As a matter of housekeeping, this presentation has a chat window, and if you would like to enter your questions into the chat window, we will address as many of them as we can. Today's presentation is scheduled to go for 1 hour, and we will be doing our best to keep to this timing, as we are well aware that everyone is busy and we do appreciate your attendance. The presentation is also being recorded, and it will be made available for you to review. Should you have further questions or need more information after today's webinar, then please get in touch with Conserve through our website at www.conserveiot.com. There you'll find a specific product page devoted to the subject of today's presentation, as well as contact details for Conserve. Next slide, please. Today, both Conserve and Lynxspring are presenting our vision for the future of edge-enabled solutions. Conserve and Lynxspring have been partners for a number of years, and today we are proud to announce that as pioneers of taking Niagara to the edge, we are strengthening our partnership with a global distribution agreement for Conserve to take the Lynxspring Genesis Edge-enabled product line to more markets than ever before. Since the advent of Niagara 4, both Lynxspring and Conserve have been working towards developing solutions that enable a seamless experience for Niagara system integrators and end users. And today you are going to learn all about the vision and exciting product range we are bringing to market. This product range has been developed over the course of a number of years using well-known technologies and with full support from Tritium. Conserve and Lynxspring fully embrace Tritium's vision of taking Niagara to the edge and have embarked on a product strategy to do so. Indeed, many of the products today are already taking Niagara right to the very edge, with these products putting Niagara on chillers, air handlers, boilers, and more, and they've been doing so for years. Our vision for Niagara at the edge centers around a fully horizontal Niagara IP architecture. This is a vision that today you will see presented a number of times. This vision not only relies on taking Niagara to the edge by embedding it into new hardware and new devices, it also relies on IP and wireless-based connectivity being leveraged to provide this seamless experience. Next slide, please. Conserve and Lynxspring have been strategic partners on edge-enabled devices, products, and solutions since 2017, making both of us pioneers in this space, bringing Niagara to the edge. Together, both companies provide a portfolio of edge-enabled solutions through Australia and the broader Asia-Pacific region and beyond to meet the needs of our customers. Furthermore, both Conserve and Lynxspring are founding members and practitioners of Project Haystack, demonstrating further our deep collaboration on cutting-edge solutions and our commitment to driving the industry forward to deliver value for all. Next slide, please. Conserve is a business that has always stayed true to 3 guiding principles. We are distributors of leading-edge products. We are developers of applications and solutions our customers need, And we are prepared to disrupt the market and bring a new vision for how we believe our industry should leverage technology. And this is what we are presenting today. Founded in 2006, Conserve has always been part of the Niagara ecosystem. Initially focusing on the analysis and efficiency improvement of chiller plants through our chiller plant optimization product, PlantPro. Conserve has continually diversified and strengthened its product portfolio to meet the needs of the building automation industry. Conserve is the largest distributor of Niagara-based products in Australia. We are a Tritium OEM and Niagara developer, as well as a Niagara portability developer, allowing Conserve to take Niagara to any hardware platform that meets the needs of our customers. With a full technical support, project engineering, and product development team, Conserve is a complete supplier of products and services to the building automation industry. Conserve is the largest distributor of Niagara in Australia and the second largest for the entire Asia Pacific region. We are one of the few Niagara distributors who can self-license our products, and we are the only authorized Vicon distributor in Australia. Conserve's business now turns over thousands of Niagara instances annually, and we are one of a select group of Niagara development partners who are taking part in Tritium's Niagara portability program to deliver Niagara on alternative hardware platforms. Next slide, please. From chiller plant optimization, Conserve has evolved a complete product range that now includes field controllers and I/O, Niagara hardware and software solutions, analytics, dashboards, sensors, and a range of IoT products to meet the demands of system integrators and building owners. Conserve is headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, but now has international offices in Italy for the whole EMEA region and Singapore to cover the Southeast Asian region. Conserve's vision is to be able to get closer to our customers and support them through the innovative products you will learn about today. Next slide, please. Joining us today is Lynxspring, and Marc Petock will be from Lynxspring will be speaking in just a minute. Founded in 2002, Lynxspring have been at the cutting edge of BAS, BMS, automation and controls for many years. As a developer and manufacturer of open edge-to-enterprise technology and solutions, they have been leading the way in delivering technology and solutions to our industry. Lynxspring products are deployed globally and cover the control and operation of millions of square feet of commercial facilities and other facilities across a variety of installed equipment. With hundreds of system integrators using their products worldwide, Lynxspring is a true powerhouse in our industry. Being involved in Niagara for almost 20 years, they are one of the very first OEMs to embrace Niagara. They worked with Tritium to co-develop the JACE and I/O platforms that Tritium sell today, and have, like Conserve, have been a portability partner delivering Niagara on alternate hardware platforms. And these hardware platforms are the topic of today's presentation. So once again, I thank you all for taking the time to attend today's webinar, and it is with great pleasure I would like to introduce Marc Petock to continue the presentation. Thank you, Marc.
Thanks, Richard, and I want to thank all the folks who are joining us today. And I see by the participant list, I know many of you from my former days and many years at Tritium, where I was head of global marketing. And again, thank you for joining us. And Richard, Chirayu, and Conserve, thank you. Next slide. So I thought I would just kind of start where to kind of look at what is the continued movement to the edge and what is edge enabled, to kind of give you a background and set a context for you. So let's look at it like this. We're connecting more devices and crunching more data more quickly than ever before. This demands a whole new approach, and as a result, we are moving to an edge environment. There are more deployments involving distributed connectivity and IP devices, and they are impacting our building environments and facilities, whether it be equipment, a single facility, or multi-site campuses. Connectivity and data are going to the edge. In fact, they are at the edge today. With our ever-growing workloads, the increase in data, IoT adoption, and the need for real-time analytics at the edge, building owners and operators are looking at alternative ways to manage and operate their facilities. Additionally, a trend has been set in which we are moved to putting applications in more than one place, and in fact, in lots of places. This, along with the rise of IP, has contributed to the disruption of the building infrastructure. As Richard alluded to earlier, we've gone from a vertical architecture to one which is horizontal. The edge is contributing to a significant shift in the way we are connecting, acquiring information, interacting with it, and making decisions. It's enabling us to expand our reach to a whole new range of equipment and devices to deliver operational value and relevant outcomes. So let's take a deeper dive into the edge. What is it? Let's look at it as simply a means to collect, connect, process data, and take actions at the device level. It's the ability to execute applications that traditionally have been associated with the enterprise or middleware. It's the opportunity to be placing connectivity, computing, and storage in close proximity to where all the action happens, which is the devices. In fact, by doing so, we're able to reduce the amount of data that are sent to clouds and cuts out unnecessary data transfers. It simplifies cybersecurity, and it decreases network use over air and system response times, meaning data and analytics are critical processes that are up to date as soon as possible. Next slide, please. So how did we get here today? Well, over the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen an increase in the breadth of connectivity options, whether it be Wi-Fi, wireless, so forth and so on. As I alluded to earlier, the increase in data volume is really increasing each and every day. We've experienced insufficient bandwidth. Affordability, what does that actually mean? That means that the cost of computer power has gone down. So that enables us to put more computer power and smartness on the hardware. As alluded to by both Richard and myself earlier, we're seeing the flattening of the architecture, and of course, the continued rise and acceptance of open systems. Next slide, please. So let me give you some facts to take a look at this. Global growth for the edge market in commercial buildings is expected to increase by a little over 11% through 2027. In a recent survey conducted by one of the industry analysts, they found the following. 73% of respondents said that their company was either implemented or is in the process of implementing edge solutions. 93% said that they intend to invest in edge solutions within the next 12 months. 72% believe that the edge is either critically or very important to improving building operations and management. 50% agree that real-time connectivity and access to data at that device level are the two most important benefits of edge. Next slide, please. So exactly what is edge enabled by Lynxspring? It's a portfolio of IP controllers, modules, and applications that support connectivity, integration, data access, and control at the edge. One platform from edge to enterprise enables Niagara end to end, because again, this is all based on the Niagara framework. It extends Niagara to new opportunities where maybe previously a standard Jace may have not been the right fit, or it may have been a little bit too expensive. You use the same Workbench software and Niagara 4 programming tools and Fox protocol that you've been accustomed to using over the years and currently use today. Completely supports open NICs. It's a completely open system. It supports Project Haystack. And in this particular case, the devices are manufactured in the United States. Next slide, please. So people have been asking us, why did we develop this? Well, back in 2015, we saw the need that IP was starting to make its presence known in our market. And we thought it would be a great idea to take the most ubiquitous platform, which is Niagara in the built environment, and see if we could put it at the edge. So that's essentially what we've done. We've extended Niagara further across the building architecture, as you saw earlier that Richard mentioned, and Chirayu will get into a little bit later here. It's that end-to-end Niagara, the first and most formidable solution that offers that end-to-end Niagara. Next slide, please. So people say, well, where can we use it? It's virtually can be used anywhere. New commercial industrial building settings can be used in existing facilities, retrofits, multi-site environments such as retail, restaurants, multi-site campuses, universities, and so forth. Equipment handling equipment such as air handler units, rooftop units, boilers, fans, fan coil units, heat pumps, and so forth. Virtually, the use is limited. Next slide, please. So if we look at the benefits, we've kind of looked at this from both a business benefit and an operational and technology benefit perspective. So first and foremost, when you look at it from a business perspective, it's one single software tool across the entire building infrastructure. It maximizes your current investment in the Niagara platform. You don't have to be retrained or certified. As long as you know Niagara and you're Niagara certified, you're good to go. It simplifies installations. It's scalable. Of course, it being IP, there's that extra security posture that inherent with an IP architecture. And you can definitely get more use of data to get more insights into the building and facility operations. Next slide, please. If we look at some of the operational and technical benefits, of which there's the support for current legacy BAS drivers, simplified access to, and you can repurpose these controllers and these units and the hardware as you see fit. All application integrations remain as you are accustomed to. Your legacy integration capabilities remain. There's IP-based peer-to-peer direct access to any device and secure IP network. Next slide, please. So as we continue with this discussion, I'm going to ask Chirayu to go ahead and give us a perspective on the different pieces of hardware and technology offerings that are available in the Lynxspring Conserve edge-enabled offering. Chirayu?
Yep. Thank you, Mark, so much for the introduction and also the insight into Edge. What is the Edge, how we got there, and why everyone is now moving to the Edge for all the building automation applications. So I would like to go through and introduce to you all the edge-enabled portfolio that Lynxspring have put forward so far, and we'll be talking about all the products that are applicable for our market here in the Asia Pacific specifically. Lynxspring do have a few more products which unfortunately are not compatible with our region, so we'll not be talking about them. But here on the screen, you can see the main products that we will be going into a lot more detail through this presentation. The first and foremost is the Genesis Edge Phi 34. This is the most popular and the most famous Edge product from Lynxspring. I'm sure most of you would have seen or heard of this device at least, if you haven't had the chance to use it. Conserve have also been using this product a lot for our own applications. We have been using the baseboard and the platform, and Conserve also put Niagara onto the same hardware, Niagara 4 on the same hardware along with Lynxspring. The next product is the Genesis Edge Phi 34 with Monit, which is the same integrated Niagara controller with 34 points of I/O on board, but it also has a Monit transceiver built into the same platform, same hardware. So once you have the Monit wireless sensors, you do not need an extra Monit gateway or the Monit cloud services to utilize it. Carrying on from that, Lynxspring have taken the Edge world even more seriously, and they now have a 514, which is, as the name says, it is a 14-point Niagara controller with 14 points of I/O on board, which suits really unitary applications like FCUs, VAVs, AHUs, and the like. Based on the 514 platform, then we have the Edge 414 VAV controller, which is going to be released very soon in the next couple of months to the general market. Along with the Niagara programmable IP controllers, which are the Genesis Edge products on the screen, we also have expansion modules or expansion I/O modules that do not run Niagara. So the Onyx XM34 I/O and the backnet version of the Onyx 34 XM I/O, which can serve as a slave to any backnet master device. So we'll go into the first one, which is the Genesis Edge Phi 34. As I mentioned before, this product has been around for a long time now. I think there are more than 8 to 10,000 units of the Genesis Edge Phi 34 sold globally and deployed. So this product is very, very robust and cooked. It has been operating pretty much everywhere that we know in the world. This has even operated chiller plants, data centers, cruise ships, apart from the normal building automation applications. So the Genesis Edge Phi 34 came into effect because, as we all know, Tritium had decided to, retire the JACE AX platforms. Lynxspring essentially had a lot of customers who still needed to use the AX platform, and hence they built this platform, the Onyx IP hardware platform, which had 34 points of I/O on it. And initially, these controllers were sold with the AX software on it. Conserve at the same time was looking for an edge-enabled platform, but Conserve's application was going to be on Niagara 4. And then we started working with Lynxspring, and we put Niagara 4 on this. And at the same time, Lynxspring have also gone on and developed the Niagara 4 controller for the Edge Phi 34. So as we see here, the Genesis Edge Phi 34 is a full Niagara 4 controller. It has 34 points of I/O on board. The 34 points of I/O exactly mirror what we know is there on an ND-IO 34 or an NR-IO 34. So if you have an application with a JACE and an ND-IO or an NR-IO 34, it is really easy to transform that application onto the Genesis Edge Phi 34. Also, engineering the points is exactly the same. Currently, the Genesis Edge Phi 34 supports Niagara 4.4, 4.6, 4.7. And as we all know, Niagara 4.9 is supposed to be released really soon. So as soon as that is released, the Niagara 4.9 dist for Genesis Phi 34 will also be released pretty much soon after. I mean, the main advantage of using all the Genesis Edge controllers is we are using the same Niagara Workbench software. So whether you use a Vicon Niagara Workbench or a Honeywell Workbench or some other flavor of the Niagara Workbench, as long as it is an open Workbench software, and as long as you are aware of the Niagara 4 programming tools and practices, it is not a steep learning curve to start using the Edge Phi 34. Essentially, it's the same workbench, the same connectivity, the same Niagara wire sheets, property sheets, and the same programming tools. Because this is built on the Niagara framework, all the standard Niagara 4 drivers are supported out of the box. Also, a lot of the third-party drivers have been tested and they work on there as well. So on board, it is a Niagara 4 IP controller with 34 points of I/O, but we can expand it to a physical 306 points of low-level wired I/O through the expansion I/O modules available. As you can see here, the Genesis Edge Phi 34, the ports on there are also very similar to a JACE controller. It has got two Ethernet ports, a primary and a secondary port, as we know, as well as two RS485 ports, which can be used for BACnet, MSTP, or Modbus RTU, or some other serial protocols. You can see on the screen that it is a really compact controller. It is only 5.72 centimeters tall, and it's about 11 centimeters wide and 11 centimeters long. So it is a full programmable Niagara 4 controller with 34 points of I/O in a really small form factor. The I/O points, as I said before, are pretty much similar to what we see in an ND-IO or an NR-IO 34. So it has got 10 digital outputs, 8 analog outputs, which is 0 to 10 volts DC, and the 16 universal inputs can be configured into either a thermistor 10K type 3 or a resistive input or a 0 to 10 volts DC input, or by using the 499 ohms other small resistors, we can even transform that into 4 to 20 milliamp signal if we needed a current inputs. This has got one micro USB and one mini USB for upgrading and troubleshooting purposes. It can be powered either using 24 volts AC or DC. Because it's a small edge device, we would definitely recommend using a rectified power supply and an independent power supply rather than trying to mix various power supplies in a power panel. It runs a full 1 gigahertz ARM Cortex A8 processor, so it is a pretty powerful BeagleBone controller with 4G eMMC flash, and of course it's tin rail mountable in a panel. The licensing for the Genesis Edge Phi 34, you'd be aware how the standard Tritium licensing works. So a lot of the license models are very similar to the standard Tritium licensing model, but because the intention and the purpose of these edge devices is to put Niagara right at the edge and be used for even small applications where previously, having a JACE and an IO34 or other devices may not be very commercially viable. We do have small licenses available for only 100 points or 250 points or 300 points. Of course, larger licenses of 1250 points, 25 devices or 5,000 points and 100 devices are also available. The licensing works exactly how we know in the Tritium world. So the global capacity licenses will be triggered either based on the device limit or the points limit. The good thing is that we can, if your application requires and if required, we can upgrade the licenses to the next levels, or we can also provide you an unlimited device and increase point capability if there is a need for that. Obviously, all of that is on a cost basis. So we move on to the next controller, which is the Genesis Edge Phi 34 with Monit. I personally know a lot of you have attended this webinar specifically to learn more about this controller, and we have been having regular inquiries for the Genesis Edge Phi 34 with the Monit version since the last few months. So Lynxspring have been using and they have been released this controller with the 900 megahertz frequency for the Americas, and they have been very successful. The 433 megahertz frequency, which is applicable for Australia and most of Asia Pacific, and the 868 megahertz frequency, which is common in the EMEA region. All the testing has been very successful by Lynxspring in their factories and on the test benches, and they should be available very soon in the next couple of weeks. We will also be releasing the general pricing for these controllers very soon. So, for those of you who are probably not aware of Monit, Monit is a company that provides a range of wireless sensors and gateways to be used for building automation applications. The beauty of this controller is that it is still a fully programmable Niagara IP controller with the 34 points of I/O that we just saw in the previous slides, but it also has built-in wireless transceiver which can automatically connect to the Monit sensors. The controller right now, as I said, is available with the 900 megahertz, but is coming very soon in the next couple of weeks with the 433 megahertz frequency and the 868 megahertz frequency for the region. So specifically for us in Australia and the broader Asia Pacific, the 433 megahertz frequency will be the standard, and that is the one that we will be using. Yep. So imagine this, a Niagara 4 controller with 34 points of I/O built on, with the ability to expand the I/O through expansion modules and the Monit transceiver built in. So if you want to do standard applications where you wanted to read some temperatures, pressures, humidity, those sort of things, you just need to go and install some wireless sensors, and install the Niagara Edge controller with Monit, and they will communicate directly wirelessly. It saves a lot of time in engineering, wiring, and fieldworks. This is supposed to be the first Niagara-based controller with the built-in sensor connectivity and capabilities. So Monit obviously supports a lot of sensors. I think they've got over 40 sensors currently in their product range. But right now, here are the 9 sensors that are supported with the Monit version of the 534, and more sensors will be added to the portfolio. I mean, like, support for more and more sensors will be added soon. The sensors that you see on here and the part numbers you see on the screen are the 433 megahertz range, which are applicable for the Australia and the Asia Pacific range in general. But when you are going to be ordering this, yeah, we would definitely need to know the region where this is going to be applied to, so we can make sure that you are provided with the right version of the Monit 534 controller, as well as the right version of the sensors for purchase. But as you can see, all these standard sensors for like button press, dry contact, humidity, motion sensors, pulse counting, temperature, ultrasonic ranges, water detection. So like using these sensors, yep, there is a really good range of information that can be gathered for building automation applications. One thing to note is the transceiver in the 534 controller with Monit is only supporting the Gen 2 Ultra range of sensors and not the previous Gen 1 range, which are going to be, I think, obsolete soon anyways. As I mentioned before, and the use of any wireless sensor is, it's an easy setup. They're low powered. They can be run with just AA or coin powered battery cells. They don't need a lot of maintenance. Really cost effective because the installation can be very quick and easy, and we don't have to run cables or we don't have to drill through walls in case to run cables through. No additional Monit gateway is required. So if you are using the Monit sensors, you would be aware that you need an external Monit gateway, which will then be used to transpose the data back to the BMS, BAS, or to the cloud. So we can remove an extra piece of hardware, the cost associated with it, and an extra layer of data transmission. Staying true to our vision of being at the edge, all the data collected from the sensors stays locally on the Niagara controller. And once the data is in the Niagara controller, it is a Niagara point. So once you get the points, the wireless sensors in, it is a standard Niagara point, and you can use it to do any calculations, algorithms, graphics, or also use it to do any controls and send back commands. But at the same time, it can also be sent back to a supervisor or a cloud service if we need to. But you specifically do not need to pay for Monit cloud services using this 534 with Edge Monit sensor. Essentially, as I said before, the Monit sensors are useful to monitor events, processes, and make adjustments in buildings and in spaces in rooms. It allows contractors and system integrators to increase their control and efficiency, and even expand their business into places which are non-HVAC. I mean, right now, because of the COVID situation, we are getting a lot of inquiries for indoor air quality, measuring humidity levels, confirming occupancy levels. So having a wireless solution does make your application and your deployment times much easier. And I mean, yeah, of course, as it is with Niagara, once you have a Niagara system or a smart automation system, you can do things remotely and you don't need to travel to buildings. Again, it supports our vision and our model of the horizontal Niagara IP architecture rather than the traditional vertical IP architecture. Simple configuration, and yeah, I mean, obviously for the Monit sensors, the communication protocol is secured and it's optimized. Typically, the Monit sensors have have more than 350 meters of range, and they can send data through 12 plus volts. Of course, the actual ranges can depend on the environment and the interference that is there in the current environment that you'll be using in. Typically, they have a really long battery life. So depending on how fast you're pulling the data and how much you are using them, you can get more than 10 or 12 years on 2 single AA batteries. All the data that is transferred through the Monit protocols is fully secured with 128-bit security. But the main point, and I will just repeat it again, yep, all the data comes in straight into the Niagara framework inside the Edge Phi 34. And once it is a Niagara point, it is a Niagara point. You can use it for pretty much everything in your building automation application. The licensing for the Genesis Edge Phi 34 with the Monit option pretty much mirrors what we saw the licensing for the Genesis Edge Phi 34 Niagara controller. It's got the same device points and same license points. The Monit sensors are considered a physical point. So yes, they will be counted in your global capacity of the license. But again, the option is there to remove the device and the point restrictions if required. Moving on to the next one, which is the Genesis Edge 514. The Genesis Edge 514 is essentially the same full Niagara IP controller that we saw as the Genesis Edge 534 controller, but with a smaller physical onboard I/O count. So it has got 14 points of I/O on board instead of the 34 points of I/O that we saw on the Genesis Edge 534. Apart from that, it uses the same baseboard, it uses the same processor, same memory, it is the same Niagara Workbench software, same tools, and the same full Niagara stack still. Ideally, the small I/O count is there more for unitary equipment control applications, more like FCUs, VAVs, rather than say controlling an entire floor or a level or a building. So as I said, yep, it is exactly the same. So the same 2 Ethernet ports, 2 485 ports used for serial communication. All the standard Niagara IP protocols or serial protocols are supported, powered using the same 24 volts AC or DC power supplies. The only difference, as I said before, is the 14 points of onboard I/O. And the I/O are distributed as 4 digital outputs, 4 analog outputs, and 6 universal inputs, which is a really good mix for doing FCU or VAV type of control. Because the 514 is sort of aimed more at the unitary control applications, you can see that we sort of have the licensing for 100 points, 250 points, or 300 points and 5 devices each. The higher license point counts are not available on the 514, but if really required, it can be upgraded to an unlimited device and point capability, which we really don't see the need for such a small controller. But yeah, like if there was a specific application or a specific requirement, there is a paid option to remove the device restrictions if required at that point. So based on the Edge 514, Lynxspring is also coming out with what we call the Genesis Edge 414 VAV controller. This controller is already being deployed with a select few clients in the US, and a lot of testing, on-site testing has been happening right now as well. and this is supposed to be released sometime in the third quarter as well. So yep, it looks exactly the same as the Genesis Edge Phi 14 controller. It is the same Niagara 4 controller with an IP connectivity. The main difference is it has got a built-in differential pressure transducer, which is very important for VAV applications. So it is a VAV controller, Niagara programmable through IP, 14 points of I/O, which can be used uh, for the different control algorithms that we need, and a DP sensor built in. So this controllers will be available with Belimo actuators, and they will come bundled as a package if required. ETA, we do say 3 to 4 months. It could be a bit earlier because all the trials have been very good, and the selective adoption has been very, very successful so far. Currently, they are available using Niagara 4.7. But yep, when Niagara 4.9 and future releases will be available, as and when required, new versions of Niagara will be provided and updated. It uses the spanning tree loop, so up to 25 controllers can be daisy changed on a single loop. There is the option to have each controller be shipped, commissioned, licensed, and loaded with a configurable station that is requested by the customer. Currently, there are 15 VAV sequence of operations supported and shipped along with the controller. And all of those are based on the latest ASHRAE G36 sequence of operation. So all the standard applications that we need, cooling only, electric reheat, hot water valve control, parallel or series fan control, dual duct control, etc. All of those come as an option as a configuration along with this controller. Because this is supposed to be a VAV controller, this actually comes with a perpetual Niagara software maintenance license with the cost of the controller built in. So unlike the standard JACE controllers or the Genesis Edge 534 or the 514s, which come with an initial 18-month maintenance and then an optional 12-month at the end of the initial maintenance, you have to purchase them. For the Edge 514 VAV controllers, there is no need to purchase extra maintenance. The cost of the perpetual Niagara maintenance is included in the initial license. There is a limitation though. This will only support 50 points and a 3-device license. Of course, that is done to make it a VAV controller. Obviously, we do not want this to become a small building controller. For that, we have the generically programmable 514 and the 534 controllers. All the logic is written using the standard Niagara blocks. So all of you are pretty good at Niagara. You are experts at Niagara. So you could go and modify the logic or add more logic or blocks as and when you need it. All the edge tools for configuration, balancing, IP addressing, provisioning for future updates, even on the OS level, not just at the Niagara level, all the tools are included along with the controller for easy use and maintenance of the controller. Now coming on to the expansion modules, the Onyx expansion modules. The Onyx expansion modules are essentially an add-on modules which add I/O to any of the Genesis Edge or Onyx capable controllers. So the Genesis Edge 534, 534 with Monit, 514, all of those controllers so we can expand the physical I/O count on all of those through the Onyx bus, which is the proprietary bus built by Lynxspring, which has a CAN as its backbone, to expand it to 34 points of I/O. Again, it's exactly the same I/O points count. So the 10 digital outputs, 8 analog outputs, and 16 universal inputs. We can have up to 7 of these per Genesis Edge 534 controller. So totaling to 206 low-level points, which should suffice for most of the small building applications. The same power supply, same DIN rail, and yeah. So as I said, we can daisy chain multiple of these, up to 7 of them, to get up to 306 low-level I/O points. The next controller is the Onyx XM34IO-B. The B here stands for the BACnet interface. So this can be used as an expansion I/O for any controller that supports BACnet. So JACE controllers that we provide through Conserve or any other brand of JACE controllers or the Genesis Edge products, which can talk BACnet. We can have an Onyx XM34 IO underneath them, and they can then connect the Onyx XM34 IOs further on to expand the low-level IO point counts on it. This has just been released just a month or two ago, and it has been adopted very widely as well. The same IO point count. The main difference is it supports the latest BACnet protocol release using the BACnet MSTP port. They can be configured and updated through the onboard micro USB port. And as I mentioned before, we can expand the IO count of any controller that speaks BACnet using external Onyx XM34 IOs daisy changed to this controller. Yep, so absolutely. So they're easy. I mean, like if you know Niagara, if you know BACnet, very easy to integrate it into any Niagara station using the BACnet MSTP connection and the drivers. Again, this allows us to, expand our vision of the Niagara IP horizontal architecture, a fully expandable, adaptable, and low cost IO, BACnet IO module. And I think we'll go back, now that we have seen and spoken about the different edge-enabled products from Lynxspring, I think we can go back and now have a look at why we keep talking about the horizontal Niagara IP architecture. So I mean, you are all familiar. Typically we see a very vertical oriented architecture in a building. You will have legacy controllers or low level sensors or IO boards. They will then talk serially up into your JACEs or your building controllers. They will then talk up to the supervisors, and the supervisors will then talk up to the cloud if it's really required. But by having this full edge-enabled range, obviously the edge-enabled range that Lynxspring have built over time, which we will be using for our applications and distributing in this region, along with the edge-enabled controllers that we are already aware of, the JACE controller that we use for standard building automation, lighting, other applications, or the Conserve CIDEG, which is the Dell Edge Gateway with Niagara on it. As you are aware, we have also taken the same platform, the same hardware from Lynxspring, and have our own applications running on it, like Plant Pro and Air Pro for central plant control or airside control. So once you start putting all this Niagara 4 IP-enabled controllers in an application, you can see that it is very, very easy to form a horizontal IP architecture where the web supervisor, the JACEs, and the edge controllers or the edge gateways can all reside on a single IP network. And of course, we can have cloud connectivity if we really need to. But so right down to small devices like FCUs, AHUs, and VAV controllers, right up to chiller plants, or even building and lighting controls. Everything can be managed on one single IP controller, on one single IP network. So this is just a slide to summarize all the benefits of edge enabled. I think Marc has already spoken about a lot of them, and I will just summarize some of the key points. I think the most important point is the use of a single unified software platform and tool, which is the Niagara 4 Workbench. If you guys are already Niagara trained and you know how to use Niagara, taking these extra controllers in which run Niagara 4 is so much easier. You do not need a lot of extra training at all. They can be easily integrated and can be picked up by your controls team very, very easily. IP-based peer-to-peer communication, secure IP connections are possible. It simplifies the architecture and installations. Obviously, third-party protocols and applications are supported. We are running all the applications right at the edge, even analytics as well. So and all the full controls. So we are sort of reducing the latency of communication of points going in right from the edge to the cloud or supervisory level and coming back. So just one. I mean, like for me, still the main takeaway is just one single Niagara 4 Workbench tool to use everything in your building. That's the main takeaway from the edge-enabled controllers that we have here. So yeah, with that, I think I will open the floor again for questions and answers, if you guys have any. And I would like to thank you all for attending. And I'll give back control to Richard. I think he's been monitoring the
Yep.
chat for control for all the questions. And yeah, he will then read out any questions, and we'll all try and answer the questions you have. Thanks, Richard. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chirayu, for the in-depth presentation there on all of the devices and features in the Lynxspring Genesis Edge-enabled portfolio. We have had a couple of questions in the chat. The first one was regarding the Monit temperature sensors and the availability of different types of sensors, particularly ones that might be able to be placed on a wall where the users will see them. So some that are maybe a bit more architecturally attractive. At the minute, the plans, or at the minute, the sensors that are supported are the ones that Chirayu has discussed in his presentation. But Marc, can I just throw to you for a second? Is Lynxspring open to including more from the Monit range of sensors, and is there any sort of process that we would need to go through to maybe do that?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, we've already identified 10 that will be entered into our product roadmap development coming up here. Unfortunately, I don't have those with me at this particular point, but yes. And then if you've got certain types of sensors, just obviously reach out to me, Richard, and we'll get it into the queue. And I will say this to the group, that with COVID-19 affecting everybody globally, there were a few Monit sensors that we recently identified that in and around helping with indoor air quality and a few others that they recently have put together. And we've moved those to the top of the list in that 10 that I mentioned to you before.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Marc. The next one was a question regarding the XM34IOB and how is it configured. And the answer to that one is it's configured using the Workbench. So it's integrated directly using the standard Niagara tools. Just one further comment on the XM34IOB is that today it is BACnet MSTP only, but it is on the roadmap to have it included as BACnet IP as well further down the track. But we'll keep everyone up to date on when that will be available. There is another question around what third-party drivers are available for the Edge 534 other than the standard protocol. Obviously, we support BACnet MSTP and we support Modbus RTU coming out of the RS485 ports. All IP-based drivers would be available as well. Marc, are there any restrictions on the IP-based drivers, particularly, or actually, are there any restrictions on any drivers that are currently available through the Niagara framework on the Edge-enabled devices?
No, not as long as they have been tested and are currently used within the Niagara framework. They're good to go with the Edge devices as well.
Okay, very good, fantastic. And maybe Chirayu, I'll throw this one to you. Do the Monit sensors, is there a PIR and light measurement, so lux level sensor, PIR and lux in the Monit range?
So there is definitely, I am aware of the PIR sensor, and I'm pretty sure Lynxspring supports that. The lux level I'll have to review because Monit has over 50 different types of sensors. So I'm not sure exactly what the lux level sensors are, but they definitely have the PIR sensor in their range.
Okay, we can follow up with that for sure. And there was just one further follow-up question regarding the USB ports on the XM34IOB. As I understand it, and I don't know if you can answer this, Marc, or not, or whether we need to follow up. As I understand it, there is no extra software at all required to configure the XM34IOB. It is fully configurable through the Niagara Workbench. And there is, as far as I'm aware, there's no need for an extra software tool. I don't know whether you can add anything extra on that, Marc, or whether we need to follow up further afterwards.
No, I mean, what you said is accurate. Just the standard Niagara tool, and you should be good to go. There's no additional tool required.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I think I would just add. So I mean, the mini USB port is only there if you needed to upgrade the firmware or the OS on that controller. It is not required to configure anything else.
Excellent. Okay, no worries. At this point, I don't have any further questions in the chat room. If anyone is holding back or holding off, a bit shy, please feel free to put your questions up right now. We are right on time. We do have 5 minutes left inside the 1 hour that we set at the start. Just while people might be thinking about their questions or anything they'd like to follow up on, Marc, do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Well, one question I get all the time is when you looked at the Niagara horizontal architecture and you see the representation for the cloud, the question I seem to get all the time does the edge replace the cloud? The edge does not replace the cloud, but rather it complements it. As we saw in the diagram, if you want to send data and information up to the cloud, most definitely do it. But these controllers are powerful enough that they can do the analytics and the actions right at that device level. But bottom line is cloud and edge complement each other.
Fantastic. I think that's a very important point to make. It's not a replacement. It is they're complementary technologies, and it's you can leverage each one of them individually, or you can leverage them together to deliver value right the way through to the clients and building owners and people who use facilities day in, day out. I think that's an important point to note. There have been a number of questions in the chat room. And there's been a little bit of activity. We appreciate everyone's enthusiasm. There's been a couple of comments around updating firmware and provisioning devices automatically, and I've addressed that a little bit. Obviously, with the devices fully supporting the entire Niagara 4 software stack, the Niagara 4 tools allow provisioning, whether it be from a supervisor on premise, a supervisor in the cloud. Then a lot of the tasks for provisioning and updating software and firmware can be automated, can be controlled, and can be managed from a central location. So yes, I mean the answer is with Niagara that a lot of this is now manageable, and a lot of the software is updatable from a remote location. So there was another question around pre-built applications on these controllers. So that raises an interesting question around access to the controllers. If you are already a Niagara system integrator and you're trained, then obviously it'd be very easy for you to work with these devices. And of course, having the Workbench tools and all of those things, will speed your use of the products. Conserve as a company does offer complete engineering services. We do offer application development, application template development, and solutions. So if you are not a Niagara system integrator, if you aren't certified, but you still see the value in the Genesis Edge enabled product line, then yes, Conserve is able to support you in bringing products to market based on the devices and products you've seen today. So we can help you develop your solutions and set them up in such a way that you don't necessarily need to rely on the Niagara tools. And this is one of the services and key platforms that Conserve has built its business on in terms of providing solutions. So we can support you if you are a Niagara system integrator, or if you're not already a Niagara system integrator or don't have the means to become one, we can help you develop products and applications on top of these products. Marc, I'll just throw one to you. There was a question about the XM34 IOB, and just wondering if there's any plans for a BACnet IP version, or if there's anything you comment around the use of BACnet IP with the XM34 IOB product.
Yeah, actually, it's on our roadmap as we speak, and most likely we will start working on that within the next 3 to 4 months. And we don't anticipate that taking that long. So stay tuned. And but the short answer is yes, and it is coming.
Yep. Okay. Just another one for you, Mark. There was a comment made about some people are seeing more specifications requiring a physical manual overrides on controllers. Now, given that the Genesis Edge-enabled product line has focused on saving space and small products, clearly this would be a very difficult thing to deliver. Was any of this taken into consideration in the thinking process about whether the option to offer manual overrides, or what do you see in your markets and in your experience?
Well, when we first developed this, we did have that conversation, or it did come up during our development phase and things like that. But initially we felt, no, let's not worry about it. But again, we want to hear voice of customer and what folks are saying. If the folks out there find the need for it, then we're absolutely open to entertaining being able to add that feature and functionality to all the devices. Because again, one of the unique and very interesting things about the portfolio is if we decide to add a feature or function and it's applicable to the 534 or the 514 or the 414 VAV, it's very easy to basically do it once and then spread it across the entire portfolio. So hopefully that will answer that. And one question that I always get in talking to folks globally is, does the edge replace the cloud? And that's kind of a very interesting question. And I like to answer it as follows. The edge does not replace the cloud, but rather complements it. It brings more efficiency, resilience, flexibility, security to the efforts we're all doing when, integrating and automating buildings and things that we all do. And for the most part, it ensures that the data that's resulting from the equipment and the devices in which we're getting that data is continuous and is received in the most optimal time frame. So the bottom line is the edge and the cloud complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with that, Mark. Just reviewing a couple of other questions. There was one question about the use of CAN, the CAN bus on the 514 and the 534. Just to clarify that this the transceiver and the Onyx network that connects the 534 and 514 to the XM34IO, that does use the controller area network, or CAN, transceiver technology as the physical layer for transmitting, but as many people would be familiar with CAN, the application layer is often not a standardized application layer, and so therefore on that basis, Lynxspring have used CAN due to its fault tolerance and its reliability and all of the great things that come with CAN as a physical layer. But in terms of the protocol for transferring data, that is something that is proprietary to Lynxspring. So it's not possible to add on extra devices to that CAN bus at this point in time.
That's correct.
Yep. Just trying to think. We're most of the way through the questions. Just scanning. So there's a question here around the Monit sensors, and do the Monit sensors carry haystack tagging or implied tagging out of the box? Monit sensors, they will communicate with the 534 with the Monit transceiver in it, and they implement the Monit technology. Okay, so whether it's the sensor or the transceiver that implements the Monit technology. Monit sensors, as of today, do not incorporate haystack tagging out of the sensor directly, although that is a fantastic idea. I think Mark and I should be going and having a conversation with Monit very quickly and asking them to include this tagging. It's definitely one of the areas in terms of Project Haystack. If we can be indulged for a minute, it's definitely one of the areas that, as an organization, Project Haystack is pursuing, is working with device vendors, with sensor manufacturers and interested parties to push the haystack tagging all the way down to the sensor level. Clearly, this takes some time with manufacturers of products, but it would be the absolute the dream come true if we could have a sensor send its data to us already tagged and be able to incorporate that into Niagara. However, today the the Monit sensors will be integrated into Niagara using the Monit technology, using standard Niagara, a standard Niagara driver that Lynxspring has developed. And from there, in the Niagara framework, that information can then be tagged using the Tritium tagging tools. And using some of the open source modules, you can then take the haystack tags out of Niagara and integrate it with whichever application you may be looking for, whether that's dashboards or analytics. You can do that. So yep, definitely I think we'll be having a conversation with Monit very soon. But today, unfortunately, the sensors themselves don't carry a haystack tag. But you can do that within the Niagara framework, leveraging the Niagara tools to deploy tags very quickly. There is a question about another question about haystack, and specifically around the haystack module in Niagara. I'll follow up offline for that, because I appreciate people here to discuss and learn about the Genesis Edge enabled products, but I'll definitely follow up to anyone who's interested in haystack. They will know that Marc and I are more than happy to talk about that at length at any time. Should that need arise. There's still no further questions at this point, but Chirayu, was there anything you'd like to finish off with at this stage?
No, I think yeah, I would just like to thank everyone once again, for your time and attending the webinar. I would also like to add that, yep, I mean, if you cannot think of any questions at this stage, we are definitely open, for all of you to email through your questions to us at a later stage if you think of anything. We will be following up, with an email to send you the recording of the webinar. So once you get a chance to view it again, or you can think of anything, please feel free to send us an email, with any of your questions at that stage if you do have. Yep, thanks.
No worries, fantastic. Okay, well, there doesn't seem to be any further questions at this point in time. So with that, I'll also add my thanks to everyone who attended. We very much appreciate your time. We understand that even notwithstanding the situation with COVID-19, everyone is still very busy, and we appreciate you taking an hour of your day to spend some time with us. We will be following up, as Chirayu said. If there is anything extra that you'd like to see immediately, you can visit our website, which is www.conserveiot.com. We do have a product page there for the Lynxspring Genesis Edge enabled portfolio, along with all the other products that Conserve offers. So without any further questions, I'll like to thank Marc Petock, Chief Marketing and Communication Officer from Lynxspring, for dialing in very late in his evening. So thank you, Marc, for your time today. Thank you to Chirayu Shah as well for his presentation, and we again thank you to everyone for attending. So for now, I'll sign off. We'll finish off the webinar, and we look forward to catching up with everyone individually at different points in time. Thank you very much. Bye.